Hey everyone, welcome to the Business and People podcast. I'm your host, Walt Bayliss. Today I have with me somebody who has a creative mind that it blows me away how talented she actually is. Her murals actually caught my eye before I knew of her amazing professional status as well. She has been nominated, actually awarded 2019's Communicator of the Year. She has been selected in the top 20 for tech, women in Canada. She's been 30 under 30 in PR. She is the 5 times best speech winner with Toastmasters International. She is a professional photographer. She is an amazing artist, and it is my great pleasure to introduce you to Sandy Pell. Sandy, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for saying all of that. You can write all of my bios moving forward. That was amazing.
Nice, cool.
Thank
you can have that as the intro of all of your, all of your work moving forward. Sandy, you've done some incredible things. Like as I'm looking through your portfolio, through your amazing history, you've done 5 years with Hootsuite. You were corporate communications manager there. You're now head of corporate communications at Vidyard, which is a video platform online helping customers get more traction, more traffic, more views on through video. How did this kind of dual life of an amazing artist, now corporate communications, kind of blend together for you?
Yeah, well, someone once asked me if I had any superpower, what would it be? And it took me a little while to think about it, but the answer I actually came up with was that I wish I could speak every language on earth.
Nice.
And I figured that would allow me not only to connect with anyone and everyone, learn lots of things, share knowledge, but also I saw a really big connection there with the art as well. So things like whether you're doing corporate communications for your business or marketing, whether you're painting a mural or designing, the side of a beer can, everything comes down to communication, whether you're using visuals or words. So it's I find that
you actually managed to tap into your superpower.
I hope so. You know what? I was one of those kids who wanted to be an artist. When I grew up, I wanted to have this big studio with plants all over. And my parents, they absolutely would love to see that dream come true as well. But they're also taking a realistic eye at looking at having a career. So
yeah, sure.
I tried to find a way where I could blend both of those things into one. Ultimately, wanted to go into broadcast journalism. So while I was taking moving through that road, I just constantly kept doing art on the side. I always wanted to marry an artist, which I ended up doing. So I constantly had art and design in every single facet of my life. So ultimately, it's been a lot of key learning to figure out how to blend the two. But I think it's been going really well. Keeps me really busy.
I can see that. So your partner, Stephen, isn't it, who runs Pell with you? You guys have got, and guys, please do yourself a favor. If you do nothing else from this podcast, go to pellvetica.com, click on some of the work that Sandy's done. Like the murals and the work there is just absolutely incredible. You were talking about designing the side of a beer can. There's a bear in your portfolio, which found its way onto the side of the beer can. Actually, let's dig into that. How did that job come about?
Yeah, so there's a company here in Canada called Collective Arts. Collective Arts found an opportunity where instead of just hiring a graphic designer to design all their cans, they thought it would be a great opportunity to partner with artists and musicians to actually promote their cans. So I believe it's every 3 or 6 months, they rotate all the art on their cans. When we got our art on that can, at that point they had nearly 20,000 submissions. So wow. The competition is hot. It's global. They have people come from all around the world. So it is an application process. But this is the thing, is working in communications and PR, you start to realize how these types of things work. So for example, yes, you can apply to be on the can, but then why don't you take it the next step further? Figure out who the creative director is on their team, figure out who the judging crew will be, and actually reach out to them as well. So it's knowing that background actually has been instrumental in figuring out how to get our art where it has been.
I love that. That's really cool. I think, for our audience, Sandy, before we clicked on record, I was telling you that our audience are entrepreneurs. They're driven individuals. They're people who set targets and set things for their life. I think they could take a lot out of that. Being able to literally coordinate something that you're wanting to achieve, like in inverted commas, like a mafia hit. You storyboard it out. Who do I need to get to? And how do I move that through? Do you do that on a daily basis in your role with Vidyard? Is that the kind of approach that you take?
Yeah, so just it's ironic that you ask. So just yesterday, our product manager was telling me that we're going to be launching a new product on Product Hunt. And because I don't have much experience on Product Hunt, I decided to tap the networks that I belong to in PR and corp comms and book a couple calls with some people who have had successful launches on Product Hunt. So over the last 24 hours, I managed to talk to one in Paris and one in San Francisco. They
Wow.
both had a very different view on how they approached their product hunts, but they both made it to number 2 product of the day. They both gave me a ton of key learnings if they could do it all again. So it's
Wow.
you have a goal, but it's so much of achieving the goal comes down to diving into all of the different specifics on how to make how to break down the large goal into smaller goals and then break those steps into smaller goals and just
I love it.
apply
I think
process
that's so
that.
very, very cool. So Sandy, take us back a little bit. You were saying that your parents they would love for the dream to come through of the big studio with lots of plants, but they were practical, saying, "Hey, you've also got to be able to pay your bills." So I'm watching your career. I'm seeing it as you've kind of morphed through. You've always had this photography artist kind of world, and at the same time been doing
Yeah.
public relations and corporate. Have you always done those two things together, or was there a time that you've kind of pushed one to the side and focused on another?
It's a good question. So, to summarize that, when I graduated university, I graduated with a corporate communications degree, so very business focused degree. Um, I then got a job as a BDR in sales for a large software company. And while I was doing that, I had moved into this very white walled loft condo, which was brand new. Everything was just white. And so over the Christmas break, he was my boyfriend at the time. I ended up marrying him, but we ended up deciding to paint one of these large walls after we had gone to the wallpaper store, and we had initially thought of doing this, like, those really hipstery wallpapers of like tomato illustrations and like
Nice.
little,
Yep.
cutesy things. So we initially had this vision to do one of the walls in the condo with this really fun wallpaper. But when we priced it out, it was $450. So
Okay.
we ultimately decided to paint it by
Nice.
hand
Okay.
and collaborate on an art piece. So within about 8 days, we ended up painting a mural in our loft, which was at that time, I didn't really think anything too much of it, but I liked the fact that we had just like taken the challenge, which didn't end up working out, but we found a solution that worked for us. And ultimately, I contacted the local newspaper in my town and told them what I had done. And I guess without even knowing it, I had pitched it.
Right.
Looking
Cool.
back on it now, because I contacted the art editor. I said, "Hey, we wanted to paint a mural. Or we wanted to put wallpaper up. Initially, it was $450. We ended up painting the whole thing for $4.50.
Wow.
So
Nice.
they ended up writing a big feature on it, a big full page spread in their art section, and um,
Did your
that
phone
was
ring
the
off the
first mural
hook?
we ever did.
Did your phone ring off the hook after that?
No,
Did you get some
no,
bookings?
no, no. We actually didn't. We didn't paint another mural for about 4 years after that.
Okay.
The
All
next
right.
mural came up. Yeah, the next mural came up when I was working with another software company called Hootsuite. And I joined Hootsuite when they were a very small company and grew with them over about 6 years. And while I was growing with them, they had gone through this challenge where they kept having, 30 people would turn into 50, would turn into 75, would turn into 250. And they kept having to go through all these office expansions in order to get there.
Mm.
So at one point, they were trying to merge these like 6 tiny little offices into this one brand new building, which had a lot of white walls. So they
Mm.
put out a call for artists to submit for painting, to the community of artists. And Steve and I ended up pitching for one of them. We got one, which was awesome. And then we ultimately got asked to do 3 more. So we did 4 at Hootsuite. And
Fantastic.
then we ended up getting reached out by a number of other companies in Vancouver. And then people took notice of our work on, I was posting it on LinkedIn. So then we got some work in LA and New York. And
Wow.
it's interesting what can happen with, social media marketing allows your work to go to any corner of
I love
the
it.
earth.
And again, so that mural of the owl, I can see why it got so much traction. It's really amazing. Can I just ask about your time with Hootsuite? So I find it
Yeah.
fascinating, Hootsuite's journey itself. As you said, you grew with them. So, from 30 to
Yeah.
50 to 250 to where they are today is amazing. Did it feel like every day there are new people in your office? Did it feel like it just was a never ending incoming funnel of people?
Yeah, so I joined Hootsuite when there were about 30 people, and they had had their biggest hiring day ever, and that was 8 people.
Wow.
So
Okay.
it
All right.
became 30. So that was back in 2011, and from that point on, it was interesting because within about 3 months they had grown to 50, and then 75, and then we were hiring 10, 12 people every Monday, which was
Wow.
really interesting to grow with a company like that. There was I always had this challenge to try to know everybody's names in the office, but just create that human personal connection. But it gets really difficult, post 100.
Yeah.
When you hit 150, you start to feel like there's strangers in the office, and then you hit 200, and by the time I left, they were near 1,000, if not already 1,000. So obviously, you can't know everyone at that point,
Yeah.
but corporate culture becomes really important as companies grow, which is, again, that's very much the conversation that I'm having with bringing murals into offices, as I constantly am talking to CEOs, leaders, executives about how they can better bring their people together through public murals that are within their office walls.
Nice.
Because I work with a comms eye and background, I constantly see mural opportunities as backdrops for magazine covers and TechCrunch front page views and things. They really do go hand in hand, which
Yeah.
has been, I think, an interesting way to connect the two that I don't think I could have ever understood how they would go hand in hand unless I did end up in business doing art.
Fantastic. Really
So
great,
it's,
really great connection
yeah,
opportunity. So, Sandy, tell me about the role of corporate communication. So, what's a day
yeah,
in the life of you for work at Vidya?
yeah. It's a really interesting role. So public relations, when you look at public relations, it's only one of the spokes on a wheel. So think about a bike wheel. It's got a hub in the middle. You got your public relations on one spoke. You got your analyst relations. You got your internal comms. You got all the different stakeholders that your company maps and mirrors to. And as a corporate communications person, you essentially are the hub that sits in the middle that connects your business to all of the different stakeholders on the other side. So in a lot of ways, it comes down to a ton of education on what you're doing within the market, what your vision is within the market, ensuring that your company or your customers are, having a great experience with your product, ensuring that analysts know exactly what your product is doing, what pain points it's solving, as well as just, being the educator and the response to public inquiry from press, or being reactive to inbound requests that come in, applying for awards, getting your executives to get stage time to be able to talk about your products with your customers. So it's a very well-rounded role. I
Wow.
never envisioned myself going into a role like this, quite frankly. When I was going through university, I had no idea I would end up in public relations, which ultimately got me into corporate communications. But I just kind of took the degree and decided to figure it out once I
Yeah,
graduated.
sure. I think
Um,
probably a lot of people feel that same way. So the role is
yeah,
taking the company message, the vision of the founders, and making
yeah.
sure that everybody in the company is aligned with that. So do you find yourself in
Mhm.
an HR kind of role as well? You're talking to employees about
Uh,
how they're fitting in and how all that kind of stuff is working?
Not directly.
Yeah.
I work very closely, I would say, as a partnership with the talent team, but ultimately they would hold the mandate and the KPIs to report on their values and their their employee net promoter scores and
Cool.
things. My role would be more so at Vidyard, for example. One of the company traditions, which I really love actually, is every Tuesday the whole company gets together from 12 to 1 p.m. and we have a company stand up. And that seems like that, might sound like a lot to do that once a week for your employees, but you wouldn't believe how much it aligns us as one gigantic family by doing that. I joined the company when there was about 100 people, and they're over 200 now. And within that, even that transition time, it allows me to get up, for example, and talk about different press hits that we had that week, or different awards that we had applied for. And maybe not one, but maybe people in dev or finance are interested in the process of actually even applying an award and what that looks like. So it's really designed from my perspective to make sure that all of the teams are, communicating and understanding what's going on.
Yeah.
I think it's really important for that to be a role within your company, because at the end of the day, like, every employee spends so much time at their job that if they're not all on board and they're not all steering toward the right direction, then you could fall off the boat. There's lots of opportunities where people can veer off. They lose motivation, they lose focus. Maybe they have different opportunities that they want to go chase, which is fine, but you really want everyone in the organization to be rowing the same paddles.
Yeah, definitely. Is the company structure at Vidyard, is it office based, or is there a remote component? Do you have people that are working outside coming in occasionally, or is everybody coming to work all day every day?
So it's quite flexible. I actually spent the first 2 years of my time with Vidyard in the Vancouver, British Columbia office.
Mm-hmm.
So I was I was actually one of their first 3 employees and all of us were remote. We didn't have an office in Vancouver yet. So we were just working from our home offices, which was, it is what it is. Eventually, we grew to hire a couple salespeople. So then we got an actual office where there was, I think, 11 of us, which was exciting because we were all, we had a physical place to go to each day.
Mm-hmm.
We grew that office to about 22, and then we got too big for it. So we opened a little bit of a bigger office, and it's, it being a part, I found it really interesting to experience Vidyard as, 3 things: as a remote employee, working from a home office, working from a remote Vancouver-based office when we're actually near Toronto. And then the third option is what I'm doing now, which I actually moved to Kitchener-Waterloo, which is just about an hour outside of Toronto. And now I work for the HQ office.
Wow.
So I've had those 3 experiences in 3 years, which is great, because if I'm on a Zoom call, then I have people who might be working from home, and someone else who may be working from the Vancouver office. And I understand their challenges if the audio is not working, or if people are late, or they can't, put their hand up and contribute when they want to. It's because you're in those shoes. It's really important to make sure that everyone has a good experience when we're collaborating.
Yeah.
So we are set up for most people, I would say, are coming into the office, the HQ office or the Vancouver office. But Vidyard's a very flexible company there, and if people need to work from home, this company is incredible at trusting you to do your job when you need to do your job.
Cool. It seems to be the good way it's going. So now, from your history, Sandy, with working with Hootsuite through that incredible growth, now working with Vidyard and doing that as well, knowing what you know now, and taking the lessons that you've learned, if you could wind back, to the start of Vidyard, what would you do differently to help them accelerate their growth, knowing what you know from all of the different, even failed award applications, or, where you haven't quite achieved something versus where you have? Like, what would you do differently to accelerate that growth?
Yeah, so I would say it's always been, my answer would be it's always been in the back of my head, but I've never fully prioritized it. And that would be basing every single thing I do around customer PR, around customer storytelling, which, I always have it in the back of my head. But if you've got, 10 things on your plate and they're all due tomorrow at 2:05 p.m., if you can somehow find your priorities list in your role and float the customer related ones, or the ones that will directly impact or change perception or celebrate customers, knowing what I know now, I would say constantly float those to the top. They're the ones that have the most impact. They're the ones that have the most impact for your sales team.
Can I ask for some examples? Because I think that's such a strong message for anybody that's listening. Can I dig into that just a little bit? So when you say that the customer message really has the biggest impact, how do you mean?
Yeah. So for example, I just wrapped up a campaign, which is a perfect example actually of what you've asked here. So we have, all these customers at Vidyard who are using our software product, and that's not very exciting sounding. Like, they're using software, but who cares, right? But we wanted to dive into those customers and figure out, how are they exactly using the product. So we launched a program called the Video and Business Awards, which we opened up to not only customers, but anyone who's using video within their business. And we put this out there and we said, you know, there's there's 4 categories. There's video in marketing, video in sales, video in production, and the Video Mastery Award, which is video across your entire business. And we worked directly with our CSM team to make sure that we could make sure that every single one of our customers had the opportunity to apply for those awards, in which they would share the story and the metrics and the challenges of how they brought video into their business. And by the end of that program, that was 5 weeks, we just wrapped it up. We had hundreds of customer stories that came in.
Wow.
I think 60% of them were customer-based stories, which was incredible, because now I look at the fact that if I filter through all those stories, we had 50 that were exceptional. They either won first, second, third, or honorable mentions. So 50 of the hundreds were, you know, guaranteed great for me. But it also gives me incredible stories to take to our team throughout the entire 2020 year coming up. So, you know, say I've got 50 customers that are great and there's 52 weeks in a year, I could essentially prioritize one customer per week and bring it to that Tuesday town hall and talk about how they're using our product and, you know, what challenges they've had, or what wins they've had, what business they've closed. So, you know, you can use that from a comms and PR role. You can get, you know, apply for panels, like put together customer panels. So, you know, take 5 of those people who were applied for marketing and get them all on a panel and put a panel application together for Web Summit or something. And it's like, if you have so many great example stories that are coming from the mouths of the customers who use your products every day, it's way more powerful than a bunch of people who work at the company talking about how awesome the company is. So it doesn't go very far.
Yeah, definitely. I can see that from a mile away. I love that. I think the ability to have those customer stories feeds not only the marketing side of things, which, as you said, you know, you can, that is, it's a terrible way to think of it, but that is social media gold, to be able to have those 50 stories over 50 weeks, you know, being able to drive 2020 forward. I think that's an amazing thing. But being able to take that back internally as well and sharing it, as you were saying, with the weekly stand-ups, to be able to say, okay, guys, this week we're going to talk about, you know, John's shoes or whoever they are, and let's talk about how they fitted it. I think that's incredible. So, that's an amazing insight in terms of what you would do differently for growth. What are some of the mistakes that you've seen made that you think, okay, we really didn't step well in that direction, and, you know, some of the things that you learned along the way from that as well?
Yeah, the ones that come to mind automatically would be, I guess, 2 things. The first one would be rushing award applications.
Okay.
Feeling like everyone, you know, looking at the history of the award and who's won it, and feeling like, you know, I should be winning that, and then rushing an application together because you think that, you know, that's one that you should be winning, without putting the quality time in and getting customer quotes in and having proper stats pulled from your team. I think that that's a miss that a lot of people do find challenging. And the same thing I would say when you're putting together event speaking applications as well. It's very much the same thing, but when these speaker calls come out for large conferences like Web Summit or you know, SaaStr down in California, they draw hundreds of applications. And if you can't find a way where you're going to get noticed in all of those applications, and you've just put together a copy and paste that you've submitted to 20 other applications, the odds of you getting selected are so limiting. And you know, the amount of time that you spend copying and pasting is actually, I would say, reversing the reputation that you want, because you're only hurting yourself if you're not getting accepted for these things.
So pick your battles, really, but make sure you win the war.
Pick your battles. Pick the things that you want and do whatever. Like what I said at the very beginning of the recording is, you know, find the back doors to everything that you do. Try to figure out how people have, you know, connect with people within your network who have submitted for certain events in the past or certain awards in the past, and do things that are different to get noticed. Nice. So at Vidyard, we're obviously a very video heavy business in everything that we do. So one thing that I do from a communications and PR perspective is I add video to everything. So for example, if I'm applying for an award, and there's no upload video component to the award, then I'll just record a video anyway, and I'll give them a URL that they can go to, and then I'll do exactly what I'm doing right now, where I'll talk to them about the exact application that I otherwise could have just typed out 600 words and hope they read it, which they don't, because I know
right.
So, and the same thing when you're applying for an event as well. It's they're getting hundreds. It's typically done through the Google Doc form, and there's no way to upload files. But if you can just summarize your entire pitch, or have the speaker, if you're trying to get your CEO or your VP of marketing up there, get them to record a video and put a URL in of their video hosted, because it goes so far to see and hear and talk to people like we're doing right now.
To stand out, to be less less copy and paste and more unique in what you're doing. So Sandy, we have this show, which is the Business and People podcast. So you've talked about the business side being the mistakes and some of the things that you've learned. Now let's talk about the people side. When we go back to just graduating, you graduated with corporate comms. We talked about your mum and dad saying, "Hey, I'd love you to paint pictures, but pay the bills at the same time." Knowing the journey that you've been on, one of the other things that you said was, "I never thought I would see myself in this role." Okay, which is all that time ago. Knowing what you know now personally, and taking yourself back to that fresh graduating Sandy, and being able to jump in our time machine, go back, sit down with Sandy all those years ago. What would you tell yourself to do differently graduating out of college to be able to fast track your success to what you have now?
My biggest key learning was in third year of the university that I graduated from, and that was that I was on campus, and I remember just like eating lunch one evening or dinner one evening and thinking, why does this university have an association for everything except communications? It just like there was there was business association, there was a sciences, there was no student association for communications people. So I teamed up with 5 other communications friends of mine that we just met in class, and we started what's called the CSA, the Communication Students Association. We started in the third year and got buy-in from the university, and by the end of fourth year, we had 150 members getting on buses and going to studios and like actually experiencing communications. So when I started to think about the fact that we all do a lot of wishing, and I wish this, I wish that, I wish this existed. We don't do enough doing it ourselves.
Wow.
So, for example, like another one that comes to mind is I had just moved to a new city last year, and I saw a ton of people constantly trying to pitch these prediction pieces. It's like, what's going to be hot in 2019, and what's going to, be hot in FinServe and, whatnot, whatever example. But I thought to myself, well, I want to know what's going to be hot in Waterloo region, which is where I just moved to. So I contacted CBC, which is one of our large publications here. And I said, hey, would you be open to me going out to leaders of our region and asking them all what their prediction is for 2020 within the Waterloo region? So they said, yeah, absolutely. This sounds interesting. So I said, okay, give me a week. I'll come back to you with 10 leaders, and I'm going to get them to write 150 words each. Within that week, I ended up gathering, I think, 22 leader responses from everyone from financial services to education to technology to not-for-profit to, some of the government bodies in our region. And when I was able to present this to her, she not only wrote one piece, she wrote 3, which was incredible. But it was a good moment, I think, for just personal psychology, where again, if you want something to exist, you just need to stand up and do it, and be the change.
Sandy,
you need to stop wishing that things existed and just actually go and do it. So it's frustrating, but it's true.
No, honestly, there's no better soundbite than that. Stop wishing, start doing, and be the difference that you want it to be. I think is absolutely phenomenal. Sandy, I can see, when I look at some of the murals that you've done, and I'm thinking of the one with the wings, with I think it's Steve standing in front, aligning with what you just said right there. The ability to take flight and do comes from within, and I think that's absolutely incredible. Sandy, thank you so much. I'm really grateful for your time. I know I've caught you in the studio at home, and I really appreciate the chance to jump on and chat with you. Can I just ask you one last question before we wrap up? What's next for you?
Yeah.
Where do you see 2020 leading you? What's happening in your world that we'll see moving forward?
Yeah, so what's happening in my world right now does really excite me, and it's going to excite me in 2020. And that is, so taking that same model with the predictions piece that I just mentioned, I was trying to find a better way to connect all the communications, the people like me who do my job within our region here in Waterloo. So I've been curating people over the last year now, and we're up to 65 people, and we now started a new organization here called WRPR, so it's Waterloo Region Public Relations, and we're meeting once every 2 months for breakfast, and we get everyone who does the same job in a room, and we talk over breakfast for about 2 hours, talk about our goals, our challenges, technology in our space, how we can help each other do things like these communications and predictions pieces. But again, it's just like, we don't all know everything, but if we can get a lot of us into a room who have varied experience with what other other of us do, it can go so far. So I'm really excited about growing WRPR within our region, and just connecting people in general. I really find that knowledge sharing is one of the most impactful things that we can do. Anyone can do it. We're all mentors to someone when you think about it. Everyone says I want a mentor, but we don't realize how many people would want us as a mentor.
Yeah, exactly. And how many shared experiences can benefit all. Sandy, thank you so much. I really enjoy it. I think, we're going to see some amazing things come from that collaboration coming out of the Waterloo region. And I think, personally, from your perspective, I think as a leader in that space, you're a shining light. So congratulations and well done. I'm excited to see what you've got coming through. Again, Sandy, thank you so much for joining me. I've really enjoyed the experience of chatting through with you. And congratulations on the success so far. And I can't wait to see what's coming next for you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This has been really fun. I've been listening to lots of episodes. I look forward to many more.
Thank you so much. Cheers.
Take care. Bye-bye.